So if we focus on business architecture, with digitalization, we've seen an increased trend with product-centric organizations. So how do you see enterprise architecture fitting in and adding value?
Many enterprises are currently deploying a product-centric organization, and this is done primarily for two reasons. The first one is to improve time to market and also leverage better the digital capabilities that the enterprise have. In a product-centric organization, you run at risk of creating siloed ecosystems around products, hence foster duplication and inefficiencies. This is why product managers have a fundamental and pivotal role in transformation, because they need to be accountable for delivering the value proposition of the company and their product within the context of an organic ecosystem. Product managers have a dual role in this scenario. On one side, they need to be focused on their delivery capability and making sure that the delivery engine behind the product is fit for purpose. So in this role, product managers need to answer questions like, which technology should we use to deliver our value proposition? Should we buy or build it? Should we create that capability in-house, or should we outsource it? And most of all, analyze the total cost of ownership of their operation and compare it with competitors in the market. But also on the other side, product managers need to have a business hat. They need to ensure that they deliver the value that the company has committed to in a consistent manner. So the questions that they need to find an answer for are, what's my product roadmap? What's my value proposition? And most of all, why clients should buy my product and not the one provided by competitors?
So don't you find that most product managers are actually KPI focused on things like time to market and market penetration? So how does that work in the context we were discussing?
Absolutely. Accountability comes with responsibilities, and one of the risks of product-centric organization is that duplication happens. And this is where EA plays a fundamental role. Enterprise architecture needs to support project managers to chase opportunities around the enterprises. And in the digital world, opportunities and interconnections become very complex, so they are also very difficult to spot. This is why architecture has a value proposition that complements the one of product managers.
Okay. So how, in practical terms, does EA enable product managers to do that?
So in first instance, enterprise architecture needs to have a clear vision of what the corporate strategy is. A well-defined strategy tells you where the enterprise is, where it would like to go, and also describe a set of steps on how to get there. Once the strategy is set, enterprise architecture needs to translate corporate strategy into tangible business outcomes. Business outcomes are the driver for product delivery to be able to comply to the promise of value proposition that the company has made on the market. Once the business outcomes are settled, then architecture can start to rethink the definition of value for the enterprises. In the digital world, more and more often we see value going well beyond pure ROI or profit. For example, in a customer-centric organization, value can be deliver a superior customer experience through frictionless interaction on a multi-channel basis. Or, for example, can be identifying a value proposition that differentiates a company in a commoditized market. So value can have different meanings. Once architecture has identified what value means for the enterprise, then we can start to work on enterprise principles. Principles are like guardrails or guidelines that define the area where product managers can then deliver features through products to enrich their value proposition in a consistent manner. Very often, the role of enterprise architecture is compared to the one of city planner in building. Once the enterprise has identified their mission statement, so where they want to build the city and for which purpose, then enterprise architects can identify the guidelines and the principles on how this city needs to be built. For example, how many fire stations, how many hospitals, where's the residential area, how do we supply water, and what's the traffic, how the traffic is managed across the city.
Okay, and what would be the city plan's approach in, say, a purely agile world?
Let's expand a bit on the city planner analogy. Let's assume that the enterprise wants to provide services for supporting shipping of containers. Clearly, the enterprise architecture, in this case the city planner, needs to think about where to build a city that supports that type of supply chain. So probably you want to choose a location that is close enough to a natural harbor to leverage the morphology of the territory. And then once you identify the right location, the enterprise architecture team establish the patterns and the principles on how to build this city to optimize it for the supply chain related to ship trade. For example, you want to make sure that you identify key capabilities that can optimize the unloading and offloading of containers on a ship in your harbor. That's where now product managers, once those capabilities have been identified and shaped, can create their value identifying what type of product roadmap they need to deliver through their products. Let's imagine that the product owner can be the person that is in charge of security in the harbor. You want probably to build a fire station as close as possible to the harbor, and then equip your fire brigade with tools and techniques to support, for example, incidents related to the handling of hazardous material. As a product manager, you probably don't want to get involved into the detail of your own supply chain. For example, worrying about how to supply fuel or trucks to your people, on how do you structure training in case of an emergency. What you probably want to do to avoid the duplication is rely on the rest of the ecosystem, create an internal supply management capability that focus on making sure you get supply with those commodities on time and at a reasonable price.